By far, one of my favorite single-player games of the generation has been the Bethesda and Machine Games Wolfenstein reiteration and remakes of the Wolfenstein games. And so, of course, we got the New Order, then Old Blood, and then we got Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus, and now we have Wolfenstein Youngblood, which definitely does take a lot of risks and a lot of interesting takes on the Wolfenstein game as a whole, and introduces new stuff to the overall lore and story as well that I found really good. So this is going to be my overall thoughts on Wolfenstein Youngblood. What's going on, guys? It is your boy Tickety here, and let's get it going. So first off, of course, to be expected, the game is absolutely gorgeous. Character models look really cool, even though it's not really a realistic type of art style, of course, as Wolfenstein has been known for the slightly kind of cartoonish type of vibe they are going for, but it still looks great, I feel, in my opinion. Lighting's great, explosions are great, lighting effects, explosion effects, everything that you could think of definitely does look really polished here. The gun models look great. Overall, the game looks absolutely beautiful, and that's, you know, neither here or there. That was honestly to be expected of these games, because Wolfenstein 1 and 2 and the Old Blood DLC all looked amazing, so really cool to see that they are keeping up with that quality in terms of graphics. Now, the reviews did say that they were, you know, having less interesting characters in this game, while of course, you know, when you have it in comparison to Wolfenstein 2 that had a big roster, a big cast of different characters that you learn to grow with and learn from, and have their own unique twist on things that happen around them and the environment throughout the game. I do understand that kind of notion as like this game does have multiple characters, but a lot of them do seem forgettable and just seem to be just pawns and ways for the player to go and get a mission. You know, as in the hub base, you just go to certain characters and you do errands for them to get side missions, and so it's not really the best way I feel that they could have approached this, and it really does kind of water down the overall character diversity that they have going on. But I would say, you know, in terms of Jess and Sophia, our main two protagonists, I thought they were definitely well written, very, very well. You know, characters that I was intrigued with and want to learn more about, especially of their growing up ages, which we didn't see a ton of them growing up, only in the beginning a little bit, but still want to see a little bit more of that. I just thought they were really interesting characters, as well as, of course, the daughter of Grace Walker. We have Abby, who she is very, very, I like her a lot. You know what I'm saying? I thought she was really, really cool, and I really hope that we get to see her in future Wolfenstein games, hopefully for Wolfenstein 3, but we'll have to see if that ever comes to fruition. But in terms of other characters, I feel like the only two that were notable here are Juju and General Lothar, which of course they have a really, really cool twist at the end of the game, which I won't spoil, but it is a really unique twist that I think definitely adds on to it, and you know, I just found them very interesting just for that twist as well. But really, no one else really stands out. Of course, we have BJ, of course we have Anya, of course, but and of course we have Grace Walker as well. So those were really, you know, characters that were interesting already. But some of the new, you know, characters, I do understand the criticism of they aren't really that interesting, and only a few of them really are. Now, to me, for these type of games and these Wolfenstein games, the main pull for me is definitely the gameplay, and the gameplay was still as top notch, still fast, still just kinetic feeling, and still making me feel like I'm in complete control of the game, as opposed to other games might feel, you know, that like might feel loose in their shooting mechanics. To me, Wolfenstein games definitely feel like I'm in control, and honestly, they are right up there with me in terms of how they feel. You know, especially when you compare it to like Call of Duty, for example, where like Call of Duty I feel is the best feeling shooter. Bethesda's Wolfenstein games are definitely right behind them, I feel, in my opinion. So obviously that's all good there. And what is, I feel, probably the most divisive part of Wolfenstein Youngblood currently right now is the new stuff that they added to the game. And so they definitely took a lot of risks here. They definitely added new functionality and new features to the game that to me make it feel like the Lost Legacy of the Wolfenstein series, where, you know, of course, Uncharted Lost Legacy, we are a PlayStation channel, so of course I will, you know, I am going to reference that game. But with Lost Legacy, we definitely got a lot of new things for the Uncharted series in Lost Legacy. We got the linear hub-based type of map building in the game. We got a protagonist that was not Nathan Drake, and so it definitely did set itself apart to be unique, and I believe it was for Naughty Dog to try out different things with their games. But for Youngblood here, they definitely took a lot more and definitely added more things to the game that were not in the previous Wolfensteins, like adding health bars, a much deeper upgrade system for weapons, a more fleshed out skill tree to unlock new abilities, co-op as well, skins on weapons, and there's a ton of other things as well in the game that are definitely new, but those are kind of like the biggest ones that I can think of also off my head. And it was admittedly jarring at first. It was very weird to see you know, health bars in the game and having a AI companion with me throughout my level and stuff like that, and having more open spaces and having to go back and return to those spaces to complete missions and different tasks and stuff like that. I found it a little bit jarring and definitely weird at first, but honestly, after playing through all of it, I didn't really think it was the worst thing in the world for the game. I definitely don't feel like it is a necessary negative that they added these new things, but I do feel like it is definitely different, and some of them work and some of them don't, you know what I'm saying? And honestly, for one, I like having the health bars, because especially with the, you know, just different high level enemies or different bosses, it was really cool to see a health bar and let me know how far off am I to defeating this enemy. So I definitely did like that aspect of the health bar, and definitely did you know, enjoy that, and hope it does stick around for the series as well for other games. But I found the abilities that I unlocked through the skill tree to be pretty rewarding, even though I feel like there is a flaw where there are some levels that I feel like the game is wanting you to rely on stealth, but the stealth mechanic, which is down on the D-pad, to enable that if you have that equipped as one of your main powers that you choose in the beginning of the game, you kind of have to rank it up to make it even really remotely good, you know what I'm saying? So that's kind of an issue that I have right there, where there are certain parts in the game where they want you to be stealthy, but they didn't really give you the correct tools or the correct path to make it 100% stealthy unless you upgrade it. So I thought that was kind of iffy, but nonetheless, it worked for me, and there were definitely some parts where I definitely did stealth and definitely did enjoy myself doing stealth in that way. And I felt overall that the abilities that I unlocked in the skill tree were pretty substantial and pretty good for me as well. As for me, probably the best part of the upgrades is the weapon upgrades. I felt that I could definitely fine tune and definitely equip a right combination of different upgrades on my weapons to be able to cultivate it to complete a specific task. And so for me, I have my AR be a suppressed AR with a X-ray sight, so I could easily take out enemies in a quick succession, and, you know, pretty stealthily in that way as well with the suppressor. And I just had my shotgun be essentially a DPS, you know, just cannon essentially, where it was just pounding out damage per second on enemies. So I definitely did like that as well. So overall, I feel like the weapon upgrades definitely make it where you could fine tune, and definitely made it a lot more fun for me, in my opinion, as well with the game. And so I definitely did like the weapon you know, customization and stuff like that. And so with this game taking about 20, I believe 20 years after the events of Wolfenstein 2, the story is pretty integral, I feel, to the actual plot of Wolfenstein. Of course, having BJ there and Anya there, and seeing how they've grown up and how they've raised their twin daughters, it was very cool to see. And honestly, the story felt very integral. So I feel like for any big Wolfenstein fan, you are definitely going to want to play this, I feel like, if you're definitely invested in the story. And they definitely introduced a lot of really cool elements in Youngblood that I hope will you know, see the light of day in Wolf 3. And obviously these elements are indeed outlandish. I won't be spoiling them here in the video, but they are extremely outlandish. But of course, if you know the Wolfenstein franchise, you know that outlandish is kind of their thing, you know what I'm saying? Like it definitely does feel and sound extremely outlandish, but at the end of the day, that is what Wolfenstein is. Like, we literally had BJ do that insane body transformation that, again, I'm not going to spoil it here, but Wolfenstein 2, you all know what I am talking about there. That insanity type of outlandish narrative is definitely not new to Wolfenstein, and it's definitely here. And so I did have a sour taste in terms of story, where there were certain characters that were brought up, like Set, where we did hear about them and hear about some of the fates of other people in Wolfenstein 2, but didn't really get a full explanation as to where they are. Maybe they are saving that for Wolfenstein 3, I'm assuming, but I would have liked to hear a little bit more about some of the characters that we loved in Wolfenstein 2. That was my only gripe, honestly. And overall, I just like to see, you know, Anya, Grace, and BJ back together. And that was definitely, I feel like the story was definitely on point here. And the story also sets up I feel very cleanly where Wolfenstein 3 will be going in terms of what they introduced, in terms of the Outlander stuff that BJ talks about, as well as how the game actually ends off in terms of, we kind of have, I believe, a split group thing going on, which I'm not going to go into too much detail there, but it seems like they're definitely going to be going off into different groups and trying to end the threat that is introduced in the end of Youngblood. And so overall, I feel like, definitely Youngblood leaves off a good kind of jumping off point for where they can start Wolfenstein 3 in that kind of regard. And so overall, this game, just to be very clear, is very different than any other Wolfenstein game. That's a fact. I'm sure if you are a Wolfenstein fan, you know it to be true. This game is very different, right? And so some people, they are definitely not going to feel those changes and definitely just, maybe not even complete the game. I totally understand that. And for me, I definitely feel like the worst feature that they added to this game was the notion of you going back to areas that you've already been to and completing tasks that are in similar areas that you've already been to and stuff like that. So I feel like that got a little bit repetitive, on top of them respawning enemies when you go back to that area. It felt a little bit like, all right, I just want to get to this objective. I don't want to fight these enemies. So like towards the end of the game, I would just kind of stealth around or just bum rush through them and just not even engage and just let them shoot me and take off a little bit of health, whatever. That's what I end up doing towards the end of the game, because I found it just kind of annoying, because I just wanted to traverse and complete a mission and complete a level. But that was probably the biggest pain I had. But overall, I felt like, the addition of health bars and different things like that, and the upgrade system, that was definitely more in depth. I felt overall kind of upped the game in terms of its score, at least for me. And so overall, I totally see why people would not like this game. And especially, I would say, hey, you know what? I say just give it a shot. You know what I'm saying? I honestly say give it a shot. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I don't think it's as good as Wolfenstein 2 or any of the other Wolfenstein experiences, but I did appreciate their kind of branching out and them trying different things with the franchise. And definitely did enjoy some of the changes, not all, but some of the changes in there. And the story, I feel, definitely ramped up and will be definitely really cool for Wolfenstein 3. And so, yeah, I say if you're a big Wolfenstein fan, definitely play Youngblood. If you're wondering about Wolfenstein, I would say maybe look at some gameplay perhaps, and maybe just kind of see if you would actually be into this game and its new features. And if not, it's all good. But if you're a Wolfenstein fan, I feel like this is definitely a must play just for the story alone. And ladies and gentlemen, that has been my thoughts on Wolfenstein Youngblood upon completion. If you all enjoyed, and make sure to leave a like on the video, as well as say subscribe to PlayStation Source to keep up with the latest and greatest in PlayStation. Down below you can find our different links in our description, where you can find our Discord and our Twitter, and also our Anchor link, where you can find our link to different podcast services where you can watch our long form content on podcast format. So whether it be Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Spotify, you can find those links down below in the Anchor link down in the description. Thank you for watching, and as always, greatness awaits.